I'm perplexed by this series. This series is such a crazy series to me. So Boston, make it make sense. The Boston Celtics have been one of the best teams in the NBA over the course of the entire year. Top 5 in offensive and defensive efficiency per 100 possessions all season long. They have been absolutely one of the best teams. Yo-yoing back and forth with, for most of the first half of the season, or the second half of the season with Milwaukee, because Boston started out the season number 1, and Milwaukee kind of took it from them. But overall, everyone knew that there were 2 teams really that had a chance to compete in the East for a championship. And you think to yourself, okay, all right, let's get to the playoffs. Let's get to the playoffs, see what happens. They struggle a little bit against Philadelphia to get to this point, but they take care of business. They probably struggled more against Philadelphia than they probably should have. Now,
yeah,
you're looking at the East, if you're Boston, leading up to the Eastern Conference Finals, saying, hey, an 8 seed took care of Milwaukee for us. Hey, we'll take that. I'll take an 8 seed knocking out our number 1 competition in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Sure. Not only that, but the 8 seed that knocks him out lost Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo over the course of the end of the season. So they're not available. So you got less players available for Miami Heat. So you're thinking to yourself, Eastern Conference Finals, although the Heat have been playing well and Jimmy Butler's been on a heater, you still feel good that you can play good defense and good offense all the way through. Now, Boston has had some random up and down games, like the second half of the season, and it hasn't looked great, but they're Boston. And they come in and they go down 0-3 to the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler, and don't even look like they're interested in playing in this series. It's mind-boggling. But yet they come out yesterday and win Game 4 the way they should have won one of the first 2 or 3 couple games. Like, what are we doing? So I guess I'm just really confused on what Boston's doing. They gave up. They gave up in Game 3. I just don't know what I'm watching with this. I mean, Miami should win because no team has ever come back from 0-3 to come and win a series in the NBA. Scotty, are you feeling the same way I am?
Listen, obviously it was a surprise. I did pick Miami to win this series, made a bet on it before the series started. But did I expect Miami to go up 3-0? Of course not. Like, I thought this series was going to be a battle. I just like the odds of Miami paying out at 4-1. I'm like, because I think this one's going to be a battle.
And you're cashing in.
Obviously, they win Game 3. Hopefully, Chris, knock on wood here. But you just go back to their other series against Atlanta and Philly. Like, Boston didn't look dominant. I mean, they obviously went 7 games and quite frankly were on the ropes in Game 6 after being down 3-2 against Philadelphia, and in Game 6 down in the fourth quarter before Philly just had a offensive meltdown in the fourth quarter, and Boston was able to win, and then you have Tatum going off in Game 7. So, but even against Atlanta, a team we feel is pretty flawed, and I would say is worse than any team Denver's played so far in the playoffs. They go 6 games, lose a couple. And now we get to they're down 0-3. They win Game 4 in Miami, so now they're coming back home for Game 5. And all I've heard everyone say is all right, well, clearly they're at home. They're going to win Game 5. It's going to come back to Miami for Game 6, and Miami better win Game 6, because if they go Game 7 in Boston, with all that momentum, they're done. And I'm like, why are we assuming this? Listen, Boston very well could win Game 5 tomorrow. But Boston in the playoffs this far has not been a good home team. Obviously, they lost the first 2 games in this series at home against Miami, so they're 0-2 in this series. They were 2-2 at home against Philadelphia, and they were, let me double check, 1-2 or 2-1. Sorry, is that right? 2-1. Yes, 2-1 at home against against Atlanta. So overall, they have a losing record at home in the playoffs. So they haven't exactly just owned and dominated. They look like a team, the reports were before this last game that this is a team that they've been together, this same core of Brown and Tatum and Smart and even Horford and those guys for a few years now. Where like it almost seems like they secretly just all hate each other. Like they're gonna play hard and they'll try to play to win, but they all hate each other. Their new head coach this year is, in my opinion, garbage and in over his head. They're going against the best coach in the league in Eric Spoelstra, or at least top 3. Don't debate. No debate there. And Spoelstra being a top 3 head coach in this league. I still think Miami's going to win this series. The odds are like Miami's only like minus like 260 to win the series, which to me is crazy. Like the odds makers have hated Miami this whole series. Boston's an 8-point favorite at home tomorrow. I'd take Miami plus 8, even if they don't win. This is going to be a battle tomorrow.
I was shocked at that opening line. So I was talking about it because I work in a company that's based in Boston, and I have a lot of people I talk to daily about the Celtics because they're all like, you know, losing their minds right now. And they were like, oh man, we'll see what ends up happening in the next game. And I was like, yeah, let me see the opening. Let me see the line for tomorrow's game. And it's 8. I'm like, 8? What are they seeing that I'm not? I'm like, I'm all over Miami in that. Because like, what has Boston done really? I mean, they've given up on this. I mean, it's inevitable that they're going to be routed out of this playoffs, most likely by the Miami Heat. But it's just like, even the larger spreads for like some of the Nuggets series, I think peaked at like 6.5 for the Nuggets home game 1, and game 2 was 5.5. So I was thinking, like, you know, even still, you're playing really good NBA talent. Miami Heat aren't a pushover team. 8 is it's crazy.
The disrespect that Miami gets, and it's more so that I just don't think Boston's playing that well. Obviously, they had a great quarter and a half in the second half yesterday, but they were down 6 at half in a game where they lose and you're done. You're swept, just like LA got swept. So down 6 at half, they played a great second half. Don't get me wrong, especially, well, really on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, and stepped up when they needed to. I think everyone's just of this mentality. They were so surprised about the 0-3 that now they're like, oh, and even before this game 4, like Smart and Brown both said on like Twitter, don't let us get one win. Don't let us get one, because if we get one, we're going to roll or whatever. And so now they get the one. The narrative, which we talked about a ton in the other series now, and this one feels like it swung just based off of one win by Boston to Miami is in a... This feels a little bit like Denver to me. Like when Denver, of course, won game 1 and everyone's like, yeah, but they're in trouble. LA figured something out. Well, now it's like Miami loses a game, still up 3-1, and everyone's like, ooh, Boston's got them now. Got them right where they want them. Like literally, what's his name? Who's the Barstool dude? Dave Portnoy.
Yeah, Dave Portnoy.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Boston guy, so huge Celtics fan, legitimately was talking about how like he likes the position. He'd rather almost be the Celtics right now, down 1-3, than be the Heat. Of course, prior to this series, he said the Heat have absolutely zero chance of beating the Celtics. So I don't know if you can take him for what his word is, and he's clearly a fan of Boston, so he's not not a little biased there perhaps, but goodness gracious, I just don't get the swing off of one game when we've seen 3 games, and especially game 3, like Boston didn't even show up for game 3.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I don't know. And you got to blow it up at some point, right? You got to figure out like if the Celtics lose this series, like they can't come back with that same roster. Like they're definitely blowing things up. I mean, I don't think Marcus Smart returns. I don't think Jaylen Brown. I think he's gone in some form or fashion. I mean, you could build around Robert Williams and Jason Tatum, but Robert Williams, he's injured half the season, and you never know if he's going to be consistently playing. I mean, I like some of his talent, but I mean, he can't shoot threes. So, I mean, do you stick with him? Al Horford, he's old man. He's aging. Grant Williams kind of got himself in some stuff with Jimmy Butler, which it wasn't his fault. I mean, his team didn't back him up when he started talking trash. He needs to back his own stuff up, but his team didn't exactly have his back either. I mean, I think you move forward with Malcolm Brogdon, Jason Tatum, maybe Robert Williams, maybe. But if you lose this series, I mean, your coach is probably, I don't know what you do with your coach.
I'd get rid of the coach regardless.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
I'm just not a fan of their coach, and I think he's in over his head. And now, of course, they're only in this scenario because their former coach did some indiscretion things, and they fire him over it. And now he's already got a gig. He's already a head coach again. So I think people in Boston are probably annoyed. Like, did we really have to let him go? You know. Real quick in the chat, Chris, you probably saw, but a bunch of people are letting us know that the Florida Panthers potentially, because now they're saying checking on replay if there's goaltender interference here, but
I mean, wow.
5-3 Panthers get a goal with 5 seconds remaining
left. What?
That could send them to the Stanley Cup Finals. And that would be a clean sweep there, Chris.
Wow.
And it stands. So Panthers sweep. Panthers, the first team to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Of course, we could have a second tomorrow. Chris, maybe there's so much intrigue right now with this Boston-Miami series because it's the only conference finals in the NBA or NHL where both teams have won at least one game. The NHL, that's a sweep. We got probably a sweep tomorrow because Dallas Stars are in shambles right now with their captain losing his mind, and we'll get to it. But
that's gonna be a good one.
What's really weird, right? So you had the parallels between the NBA and the NHL this season, because you had 2 8 seeds from the same state that were up 3-0 in their conference final. Like that how does that happen? That's crazy. But then you also had 4 games out of 4 in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference of NHL and NBA that were 3-0 series leads for each game. Like, when's the last time that happened all together at once? Where it's like everybody, all these teams are just on the road for a sweep? That's crazy to me. The parallels that we're seeing between the NBA and the NHL, these playoffs are super strange. I mean, it's conspiracy status. Like, what are we? How coincidental can that be?
And it's literally, you said same state. It's basically the same city, Chris. Like,
yeah,
the Florida Panthers are essentially Miami. So they don't play at the same arena, but that's about it. Sunrise, which is where Florida plays, the city technically is 20 miles outside of Miami. So
it counts.
Basically 2 Miami teams, both 8 seeds in hockey and in basketball. One's now made it, and one is a 1 win away from making the finals in both of those. So that'd be wild, Chris. Can you imagine if the Avs were in it again this year and we were both teams were on the precipice of making the finals? This city would be losing its mind. I can't imagine what Miami's doing. They're clearly not blinking. Did you see Brooks Koepka the other day, by the way?
I didn't watch a lot of him, but what did I miss?
Well, I meant more so he went to, after he won, he
was at the Florida game,
and then he went to the Heat game last night. And there's a clip of him at the Florida game where he's in a Panthers jersey and he's just sitting there clapping, and he does not blink for 45 seconds straight. He's just clearly he's on some sort of substance. I'm not talking alcohol. He took something, because he looks like he has no clue where he is, and he can't possibly blink. So
weird.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Finishing up on this NBA stuff. As a Nuggets fan, do you want one team over the other, and 2, do you want it to, even if you, let's say you want Miami, would you rather it go 6 games, 7 games, so the Nuggets even have a larger rest advantage, or what are you thinking, Chris?
So a couple thoughts. I mean, I'm bracing for Miami, and even with Miami, I feel really good about the matchup. So with Miami, it's more of a confidence of depth and role players, and just the fact that we've, as Denver Nuggets, have made through the playoffs. They've been able to make it through some of the most prolific offensive players in the NBA, right? You've made it through. Anthony Edwards in the first round was torching us, 30, 40 points a game. We survived that we crushed through that series, even though he was torching us. You made it through Kevin Durant, and you made it through Devin Booker in the second round. They didn't have depth, but they still had prolific scorers that, we somehow weathered that storm and won that game, that series, based off of depth, based off of how, we were able to, attack Phoenix. Then you look at the LA Lakers series. We took care of Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Their role players are better than any team that we played up until that point. So, and I would say their role players are better than anything that's in Miami. So if you're taking the fact that we beat a team with with prolific scoring stars that can manage games like a LeBron, like an Anthony Davis in various ways, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, but you also took care of some of the best role players on the LA Lakers, I feel really good about how we stack up against the Miami team, which, is, again, missing Victor Oladipo, missing Tyler Hero, who may come back if they make it to the finals, if they make it to, once they do. I just think that the edge goes to the Nuggets in all those departments. Like, we've played these teams before. I don't see so the LA Lakers are they're the best defensive team with the best defensive player that we've encountered. Miami, less impactful defensively. We're going to get even more open shots than we did with the LA series. So overall, I feel really good about the matchup. Should Miami do what we think they're going to do, I like the fact that we have seen everything and there's nothing that really is going to surprise us in the finals. And I like the fact, speaking of, I like the fact that they're still playing and we get I think the rest is one thing, like being rested and whatever. I think the bigger advantage for the Denver Nuggets is their game watching, their tape that they're watching. They're watching all of the Miami's plays break down. They're getting the film sessions in. If you go back and you listen to some of the press conferences of these opposing teams for these other series, Karl Anthony Towns came out and in the first series like the Nuggets knew exactly what we were going to do before we did it. That's game film. The Phoenix Suns said something similar in the middle of that series where they were like the Nuggets just they watch a lot of film and they know what to do when we're doing running through certain plays. Like, that's a very underrated thing that I think is going to be beneficial for the Nuggets to have this time off and take advantage of a team that's maybe still putting together a lot of their plays to try to finish this series. I don't know. I think that's a big advantage.
Chris, maybe, listen, sometimes I come off a little maybe arrogant, maybe conceited a little bit. And so I'm going to I'm kidding. I'm not going to be careful now. The Nuggets are going to roll either of these teams. They will roll these teams. Like, I watched game 5 last night, or game 4. I was just like, there's just no chance. These teams have no chance against the Nuggets. Now, part of me, so then it comes down to storylines. Obviously Boston's a fun storyline because listen, if we beat the Lakers and then the Celtics, the two most iconic franchises ever, in the conference finals and then finals, that would be really sweet and awesome. Maybe a little more star power when you're talking Celtics because of Tatum and, Jaylen Brown compared to Miami, which really, outside of Jimmy Butler, maybe you throw Bam in there, but I don't think Bam's really on that level. So
Bam's going to foul out so fast with Jokic.
But there's intrigue with Miami in the sense of, what was that, a couple years ago at the end of the game where Joker got into it with the Morris twin, pushed him, after Morris was being dirty with him, and then he knocked him from behind, and he was somehow paralyzed. He wasn't paralyzed, but he acted like he was paralyzed and couldn't play for forever on a hit that really wasn't that bad. But Jimmy Butler on the court's yelling let's meet outside or in the locker room after the game, or outside after the game in the parking lot. Let's go. So I don't think that's been forgotten. Denver has won 9 of their last 10 against Miami in the regular season, dating back the last 5 years. So they've kind of had Miami's number. I think Denver takes care of either one of these teams with regardless of who wins. But and then Miami would be nice in the same sense because we get one more home game. We'd have home court. Where against Boston, we would not have home court. So, and I know you already purchase ticket for games 5 and 7. Well, hopefully games 5 and 7, or I guess just game 6, depending on who wins this series. But anyway, it'll be interesting. Tomorrow we'll see what happens. But I kind of got a weird feeling that Miami might close them out tomorrow.